Welcome to Between Authors. I am your host, author Adrian Lopez. If you enjoyed the episode today, don't forget to leave a like and comment below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification so you don't miss all the amazing authors coming up. What is it that excites us as a reader? It's finding that author or book that you may never have heard of, sort of like the treasure hunt as a reader. The goal for my podcast is to bring to you those authors or books that you may never have found, but may have been the treasure you've been hunting for all along. Today in episode 16, I bring to you author Corrie Peters. We're going to learn a little bit more about her, what she's published, and what she's working on in the future. Welcome to the show, Corrie.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you as well. Why don't you give yourself a little introduction to the viewers and tell them a little bit about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I live in Houston, Texas with my husband. We have a dog and a cat. Hopefully they don't invade my space while I'm trying to do this. I teach first grade. This is my third year teaching first grade, which I just love. It's a great day job, and it leaves lots of mental space and mental energy to do things on the side, like write. So I also enjoy just doing stuff with my hands, like cooking or do a little gardening and art and stuff like that. So that's me.
That sounds great. I actually originally planned to be a math teacher.
Yeah.
And then I completely switched over to business, but that was my original plan because I do love teaching and I do love math in general. But that was something I had planned to do originally.
Yeah. No, I really enjoy it. I mean, children can be such pleasant company, like most of the time. And then there's always something new every day. So
Absolutely.
It keeps me on my toes for sure.
So why don't you give the viewers a little idea of your influences? And this can be from anything. It doesn't have to be authors and books. It could be music, art, movies, anything that influences you.
I mean, when I hear influences, I just think books. So that's where my mind goes first. One of my just favorite authors is Jennifer Egan. Have you ever read any of her work?
I don't believe so.
So her most popular stuff was Visit from the Goon Squad, which was like a collection of short stories. So she really kind of like does some genre bending. But my favorite book by her is a historical fiction book called Manhattan Beach. And she just has this like atmospheric style, but it was meticulously researched and just beautifully written. So that's just one of my top books up there that I'm like holding off rereading because I'm just excited, to get into it. And then just thinking about, I write mystery novels now. And when I think about my influences for mystery books, I think about an author I read a lot in high school, which was G.K. Chesterton and his Father Brown series. And yeah, there was the level of what was happening on the plot, but then he also has just this level underneath of so much meaning and the human nature and everything. So those are some of my top authors. And then music would take me a while, so I'm going to hold off on that one.
Okay.
Too many names.
We'll save that for your next book and your next visit on the show.
That sounds great.
So let's talk about your book, Outfoxed. Why don't you give the viewers a little idea or a little summary about what the book is about?
Sure. Okay. Well, that's the worst question, is try to summarize your book, right? The elevator pitch. I hate it, but I'll do my best. So Outfoxed is a murder mystery. It's set in the 1890s in England. My main character, 16-year-old Sergei Kelly, is traveling across England by foot to visit his sister when he finds himself stranded at this house party in a splendid manor where his mother grew up. But his grandparents, they disowned his mother years ago. They also believe that Sergei's responsible for poaching a fox on the estate. So he kind of enters the scene with a lot of suspicion. Then when a murder occurs during the house party, he becomes the obvious suspect. So he has to clear his name with the help of his sister, Anisha, who has to blackmail the police into becoming a consultant on the case. So the investigation isn't just about solving the murder, also ends up uncovering a lot of secrets about their family, and then also Sergei's past life with an anti-anarchist intelligence agency in France. So there's a little political theme going through. So that's kind of the plot of the book. When I think about what it's about, it's about siblings, fighting to protect each other. There's kind of a theme of the way that when you really love somebody or think you do, you can end up trying to control or manipulate them. There's two young people who are straddling two social classes, and they're reckoning with their elders and the legacy that they've been handed down. And then it's just about choosing to tell the truth, even when it's difficult. So yeah, that's Outfoxed.
Does this, no, this is not a question I usually ask, but I'm curious, did this come from an overall idea you had, or was it like a short story you were starting with and it kind of grew on its own?
It was the characters. I had these characters in a lot of different versions and stories in my mind. And then this was the one that kind of clicked, that I felt like I could run with and go the distance with it. That's a great question.
Did you find the story changing at all as you started going? I know a lot of us, you have kind of somewhat of an outline in your mind or maybe down on paper, and then the story winds up just going on its own and going a different way.
When I started it, I didn't know that it would be a murder mystery. That's the degree to which I was not planning this thing. Obviously, that put me in a position to do a ton of rewrites so that it was consistent in terms of, a crime and everything. But no, I don't do a whole lot of planning to begin with. But I write slowly enough that things kind of come together as I write. Yeah.
Do you find yourself writing chronologically, or are you kind of all over the place?
I have to go chronologically. Yeah. And rewrites, obviously that's going to take you in every direction. But when I sit down to write the first draft, I don't know what the ending will be. So I can't do that yet. Even just tonally, I feel like I'm in a certain mood or tone in a certain part of the book, and I have to kind of follow it to its resolution before I know what the next even beyond what's happening, just that tonal element.
Yeah. Interesting. Favorite scene. Do you have a favorite scene in the book? And that could be the actual scene itself, or it could be, as you were writing it, something that just came together for you.
Mm-hmm. I think it would have to be the first scene that kind of inspired the story to begin with, which is my main character when he first, he gets caught sleeping in the woods, and they blame this poaching on him. And so he gets brought in front of who turns out to be his grandfather. It's kind of a surprise to both of them. And I think that was the scene that I had rolling around in my mind, because they're both so uncomfortable. They don't both, there's just the contrast, between the one is a very wealthy aristocratic man, full of regrets, and then my younger main character who also is they're mutually judging each other, right, for their positions. But there's also that curiosity of, what's this relationship? What have I been missing out on this whole time by not knowing you, right? So that was my favorite scene. It's one of the only scenes I have written from the perspective of his grandfather versus Sergei. Still not, that decision still makes me reflect. I'm like, why did I do that? But it just felt right. So we did it.
Yeah. I mean, again, sometimes the story just takes you a certain way, and that's the best way to tell it. So you just kind of run with it.
Yeah.
On the opposite end of that, was there a hard scene for you to write, or maybe just the scene in general?
Well, it was the ending, right? Because I didn't know what was going to happen. I find that writing myself into a corner and my characters at the same time tends to be a good move for me, because then I have to figure out alongside my character what needs to happen. So I can't summarize it because it's the ending. I don't want to do spoilers. But I was like, I don't know how he's going to solve this. Like, what move is he going to have to make to fix this? And it took me a lot of plotting alongside Sergei to figure out what our move was going to be. But it turned out to be one of my favorite scenes. Really, it came together. So and was very. I think when you know your characters, then you get to discover alongside them, and it be genuine and authentic to them, right? So, yeah, the ending.
Yeah, and then again, that's genuine to the readers, and the readers will feel that. So that emotion, that connection you're feeling is the same thing they're going to feel coming off the page. So that just makes it that much deeper.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Research. Did you do any specific research for this book?
Yeah. So it's historical fiction. I mean, I read a lot of like fiction that's either written in that period or written since about that period. And so I feel like I had just that residual knowledge. You know, I watched Downton Abbey. I picked stuff up, but specifically around the anarchists. So there's my character had worked for this anti-anarchist intelligence agency. And so turn of the century anarchist scene is really interesting because when we look back at the 20th century, we think like, you know, the social movement was communism. But there for a moment, like anarchism and communism were rubbing shoulders against each other, and communism won out as the one that was able to get organized and off the ground. But I really enjoyed learning about anarchists. I'm not one myself, but they had this concept of propaganda of the deed, which was basically, how are we going to change this oppressive social system? Well, we have to do these acts that catch everybody's attention, right? I'm going to assassinate somebody. I'm going to throw a bomb someplace, right? It's sort of the beginning of some of the first examples we have of terrorism. Targeting not just somebody famous, but just regular people. So there was a couple books that I've picked up and found. John Merriman had one about a bombing in Paris. Let me look back what the title was. Oh, The Dynamite Club, How a Bombing in Paris Ignited the Age of Modern Terror. That was really interesting. But I do a lot of just kind of prowling around on the internet, trying to pick up those little bits and pieces that I need, you know. How long does it take a body to decay? All that good stuff, right?
Exactly. all those interesting Google searches that we all have.
I know. Hope nobody looks through them because it looks pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always thinking about how important the research part is for almost anybody's book, because really it's that little. It's the icing on the cake. It's a little seasoning that you add to it, because there are a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge in certain areas you may not think about, and they'll just absolutely hate the book if you're not genuine with some of that information, right? You don't have to be an expert, as long as you're calling the right stuff out at the right period and things like that. So it is very important, no matter what book you're writing.
Well, I mean, I know for me, when I pick up a book and you can just sense right away the knowledge that the writer has. And it builds a lot of trust for me if I can tell, like, not only do they have their research, but they're inserting it in a way that's not showing off. It's not just for the sake of the research. I researched this, I have to include it no matter what, you know. It's inundated in an appropriate way, right?
Absolutely. Did publishing this book change your writing process at all? Did you find yourself changing in the process of getting this up and online?
I would say no. Like, that would be my prevailing answer, is not really. I mean, I feel like line edits kind of kick my butt. Like, I don't enjoy that kind of thing of just like the really nitpicky stuff that has to happen to get everything polished. But not a ton. Like, I know for me, it's like I just have to focus on the story at hand. And keep that element of play. Because if I even start getting in the mindset of, okay, what's my audience? Am I going to please my audience? Are they going to like this? Like all that kind of stuff. I'm just going to be paralyzed. And so I think to my mindset is I have to enjoy it while I'm writing it, or who's going to enjoy it while I'm reading it? And why am I even doing this if I don't enjoy it? Because it's not even my full-time job, so keeping that element of play and curiosity. I was thinking today, because I was watching kids at school at recess, and just the kind of attention that they can bring to an activity, even while they're playing, right? They're so focused. And that's the kind of, they were catching grasshoppers. That's what they were doing. They're catching grasshoppers, and they're just in the sun and they're sweating. It's so hot. But if you're at that level of play and curiosity, even when it's a grind, you're in it and you're invested. And that's the kind of place I want to be in my writing, no matter, if 5 people read my book or however many, right? It's got to be enjoyable for me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, you gotta stay kind of true to your voice, what the story is. If you start thinking about, does this fit a certain audience, then it's not your voice anymore, right? You're kind of molding it to what you think people want. And there will always be an audience for your voice, your specific voice. It's just, I've said this in other podcasts. It's just the challenge is always you finding them and them finding you, right? But when that does happen, they will absolutely love your voice and what you put out there. So you just always want to stay genuine to it.
Right. Because I mean, if I tried to be something else, I don't think I would do it successfully, right? I don't think I would devote the time or the energy to do it anyway if I was trying to do it for somebody else.
Yep, so. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Future. Before you go into future plans, do you ever see yourself doing other genres, or do you think this is kind of where you'll stay in?
Kind of. I think I could fall into a little bit more of like the literary fiction route. That's a lot of what I read is literary fiction. So some version of maybe mystery / literary fiction would probably be where I would see myself landing. I enjoy like reading YA. And so I think writing YA or middle grade at some point in the future would be an interesting challenge. I think it could be a little bit harder than writing for adults, writing for YA and children, because you have to keep things even more simple. I don't know. I think you're holding yourself to a higher standard when you write for younger people.
Yeah.
So that would be where I could see myself in the future. But I am working on the sequel to Outfoxed right now. I've written myself into a corner. I don't know what's going to happen, and we'll figure it out.
So similarly to when you did that for the ending in book 1, what is that feeling like when you find yourself in the corner and you're like, I have no idea what I'm going to do here, and then you finally figure it out? What was that like for you?
Well, it was a really good feeling when it happened. I think. So is your question, how do you get the answer?
No, like, not how you get the answer, but that, you have, as a writer, like you say, you have maybe not a block, but you have a problem, right? You find yourself going, okay, I know kind of where I wanted it to go, and I know where I took it, but they're not interlocking, right? So what do I need to do to get this? And that's, like you said, that was a struggle. You had to sit there and kind of rethink and say, okay, how do I do this? But that moment when you do that, right? That moment when you say, oh, wait a minute, okay, I know exactly how to do that. How was that for you when you finally came through with that?
I think sometimes it looks like picking the harder thing for yourself and your character. I think that oftentimes the ending that we hold in mind for our characters, it's one of the first ones that came to mind for us. and for the character in the book, and it probably will for our reader as well, right? So if we do write ourselves out of that one, that's a good thing. And choosing that harder thing, it might be more of a beast to write. And, for now it's going to be harder, but it's going to end up being a lot more interesting. And just push ourselves a little bit, with what happens. I think that's where I am right now with this dilemma that I'm looking at right now. It's like, okay, I kind of have the easy route of where it can go. But what if we up the ante a little bit, So
Did book 2 come to you as you finished book 1, or was it a thought much later on, or was it something you had in mind from the beginning?
Some of the bones of it were there. I think I ended up starting 4 or 5 sequels that I abandoned at like 5,000 words, 10,000 words. I think one of them was like 30,000 words before I was like, this is not working. Something about my very premise is like messed up. It's not working. And so finally landed on this one, and turned out a lot of the writing that I did for those other ones, I'm able to pull into, or the research or whatever, pull into this one. So yes, I had the bare bones of it, but the larger premise has changed every time. But hey, I'm not finished with this one yet. I better not act too confident that we're going to stick through it.
Future goals. What are things that you would like to accomplish at some point in your writing? Anything you have planned, or you're just going to kind of take it as you go and see how the journey takes you as you're moving through it?
I think for right now, it's take it as it goes. Take it as it goes. I'm going to probably hold all my plans pretty loosely at this point. But just try to, I think it's easy to treat it as like a little bit of or for me, it's easy to treat writing a book and putting a book out there as a little bit of a smaller thing than it is. It's not that big of a deal. I'm just going to keep living. But no, like I believe in the story. I want people to read it. I want to keep pushing, like putting time and energy behind getting it into as many people's hands as could be interested in it, right? So just sticking through with it for now and doing the next thing that I know to do is my plan.
Have you, how has the marketing part of this book gone? Because I know it's difficult for all of us to just try to get it out there and get it in front of people.
Thankfully, my publisher is like taking so much of that load. And so right now, the Kindle book is out. The print book is still coming out. I know probably a lot of just my immediate people who will read it will want to have the print. So I haven't done a whole lot of the marketing side of it yet until the print is out, and then we can really push it a little bit more. I would say it doesn't come naturally to me, the marketing side of things. But we'll make some cute graphics and keep putting it out there until hopefully people aren't sick of it. Maybe they'll even buy it. We'll see.
This episode, I believe, is going to air because we're shooting this ahead of time. I believe this is somewhere in the middle of November is when it will be on air. So so definitely, just to remind the viewers, I will have the links below for Corrie's books. If there's any website or any other social media links you want to have, we'll have everything down below for them to be able to reach you or to find your work. Is there anything else you want to leave with the viewers that, things you're interested in or working on?
Oh, I think just thanks for spending the time with us. I'm excited to it's always fun to talk about your books, and I love books so much, not just my own. So it's exciting to think about people carving a little bit of time out of their day to think about books with us. So
absolutely. I want to thank the viewers again for watching the episode. Please leave a like and definitely leave a comment for either Corey or myself below. We'd love to hear if you have any questions or just let us know what you thought of the episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification so you don't miss all the amazing authors coming up. I really do want to thank you for coming on, Corey. Definitely would love having you on again in the future when you have the other books and stuff come out. We can talk about those as well. But it was a pleasure chatting with you today, and I really do appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much, Adrian. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you again to the viewers. Goodbye.